God sees all, a reflection on Psalm 50. In a world filled with injustices, it's easy to feel overwhelmed and even question whether God sees what is happening. Psalm 50 offers a profound reminder that not only does God see every act of wrongdoing under the sun, but he also holds the power to serve perfect justice. This psalm vividly portrays God as a righteous judge, calling his people to accountability and making it clear that no injustice escapes his notice. Psalm 50 begins with a declaration of God's authority. The Mighty One, God the Lord, speaks and summons the earth from the rising of the sun to where it sets. Psalm 51, NIV. This opening sets the tone for the entire psalm. God is not a distant observer, but an active and sovereign ruler. He sees every act committed by humanity, whether done in secret or in plain sight. His power spans the entire earth, and his voice commands creation itself. When we witness injustice, violence, oppression, deceit, it's comforting to know that these acts are not hidden from God. The psalm continues with a courtroom scene where God gathers his people, ready to bring charges. He summons the heavens above and the earth, that he may judge his people. Psalm 50, verse 4, NIV. God's judgment begins with his own people, reminding us that accountability starts within. He rebukes hollow religious practices, highlighting that he desires heartfelt worship and obedience over ritualistic offerings. His message is clear: outward appearances do not deceive him. If God is this thorough in addressing his people, how much more will he hold the world accountable for its injustices? Verses 16 to 21 turn to the wicked, exposing their actions. You sit and testify against your brother and slander your own mother's son. When you did these things and I kept silent, you thought I was exactly like you. But I now arraign you and set my accusations before you. Psalm 50, 20 to 21, New International Version. This passage resonates with our frustrations when injustice seems unchecked. It may appear as though the wicked prosper while the innocent suffer, but God assures us that his silence is not indifference. Instead, it is patience, allowing time for repentance. But patience has its limits, and God will ultimately intervene, bringing every hidden deed to light. The psalm closes with a sobering warning and a promise. Consider this, you who forget God, or I will tear you to pieces, with no one to rescue you. Those who sacrifice thank offerings honor me, and to the blameless I will show my salvation. Psalm 50, 22 to 23, New International Version. Here we see both the severity and the hope of God's justice. For those who persist in wrongdoing, there is a dire warning: God's judgment is inevitable. However, for the faithful, there is a promise of salvation. This duality reassures us that while justice may seem delayed, it is never denied. Psalm 50 reminds us that God's justice operates on his timeline, not ours. While we may not see every wrong made right in this life, we can trust that God sees all and will act according to his perfect wisdom. This truth calls us to two responses. Trust in God's sovereignty. When the weight of injustice feels unbearable, we must remember that God is in control. He is a righteous judge who will not let evil go unpunished. Live blamelessly as God's people. We are called to live in a way that honors him. Offering thank offerings means living with gratitude and faith, trusting that God will fulfill his promise to show salvation to the blameless. Psalm 50 paints a picture of a God who is not only aware of the injustices in the world, but is deeply moved by them. He is not passive. He is actively working toward a day when all wrongs will be made right. Until then, we are called to trust him, live faithfully, and hold on to the hope of his ultimate justice.